second audience question will begin with Mr. Welch. Mr. Welch, and of course all three of you will address this and you'll have 2 minutes. How will you protect education from funding reductions in the state of Illinois?
I think I started addressing that when we were talking about the pensions. I think I know a little bit about education as well. You know, we have been cutting, where you can't cut anymore. You're not going to be able to continue cutting and educate our kids. But really, the way you protect education funding is we need someone in Springfield to go down there who understands that our system is fundamentally flawed. We rank 49th out of 50th in how we are funding our schools. The only way to do that is fix that funding structure. We cannot have a system that's built on property taxes. If the average homeowner here is paying $5,000 a year in property taxes, and the average homeowner in Oak Park is paying $20,000 a year in property taxes, which school system do you think is going to be better? I think Illinois is promulgating a racist financial structure. It's violating Brown versus Board of Education, and you need someone down there who understands the law, who's understanding that the state is not following the constitutional precedent set by our U.S. Supreme Court, and we change the way that's funded. If we get rid of the emphasis on property taxes and go to this progressive tax structure, now you're going to have a system where everyone is pitching in to take care of our schools, and the lower poor school districts will not be hurt like they're hurt now. You would have, the State Board of Education would have a formula that they would be allowed to use, and districts like our districts would actually benefit more. And yes, under a structure like this, other folks from across the state would help our school districts. That's what Brown versus Board of Education says we should do. So the way you truly protect education funding is we got to increase the revenues. And we increase the revenues by changing our fundamentally flawed system. And again, all these casino boats around here that we already have, and the money's not going to education, the new ones that are coming, make it go to education. And oh, where's the lottery money? Where's the lottery money? Where's the tax education?
Same question. Mr. Hoskins, 2 minutes.
Each of the last few years, we've seen threatened cuts to human services and education. But in each of these last few years, we've seen private organizations join with sensible legislators, and they've solved the crisis. They always have seemed to find the money for education. We've all talked about the need to reform our tax system. But the best way, I believe, to protect education is through coalition building. As a legislator, I would work with like-minded legislators to ensure that we have adequate funding for education. Any new streams of revenue, similar to what Chris Welch just said, would have to be dedicated to education. Additional gambling revenues, additional tax revenues, but it all comes down to coalitions and to being proactive. As your state representative, I'll continue to work with local groups. Within the last 2 years, I've worked with organizations such as the Responsible Budget Coalition. When human services were threatened, the RBC convened literally hundreds of groups, led massive bus caravans to Springfield. And groups like the RBC let the legislators know that you couldn't cut education. That's my track record. Past is prologue. The best way to predict what someone's going to do is to look at what they've done. And as a government official, as a public servant, I've always had a great relationship with schools. My kids are in the schools. I'm in the schools. I have a 9th grader, a 7th grader, and a 4th grader. And you can bet that as your state representative, I will fight to make sure that education in our district is adequately funded. Thank you.
Miller, 2 minutes, please.
I do believe that education is key and that we cannot keep cutting, and expect our children to come out of schools with the skills necessary to be productive adults. So I would go to Springfield and look, as my counterparts have mentioned, at forming coalitions with my counterparts across the aisle, as well as those within my own party, to ensure that education remains a priority within our state. We cannot keep cutting and cutting as it relates to education. I would also look at, as counterpart Welch mentioned, that the revenues that were to have been generated from the lottery. When the lottery was first created, we said that the key recipient of those funds would be that of education. So I think we need to relook at where those monies are going and do a true analysis of that, and then stream those monies toward our education of our children. Thank you.